I have been a judge for a long time, long enough to know that fame is a specific kind of weight, not the weight that crushes, the weight that floats, that lifts a person slightly above the ordinary friction of living in the world with other people. The friction of lines and rules and consequences that apply to everyone else but seem, after a certain point, to stop applying quite as firmly to the person who has been seen enough times on a large enough screen. I understand how it happens. I do not judge the people it happens to, but I do notice it. And I notice what happens when those people walk into a room that does not float. Marcus Webb was 38 years old. He had played professional football for 11 years. 6 of those years had been here, in this city, for the team that this city loved, with the particular intensity that cities reserve for the teams that gave them something to believe in on Sunday afternoons when everything else felt uncertain. He had been good, genuinely good, the kind of player whose name people said with a specific kind of affection, the affection of a city that felt it had a personal relationship with a person it had never met. He had retired 2 years earlier. A knee, the kind of injury that made the decision before the player was ready to make it. He was doing well. He had a foundation that worked with young athletes in the city, but he did television commentary. He was by any measure a person who had handled the transition from being seen to not being seen with more grace than most people managed. He came in on a Thursday afternoon. He did not need to do anything to be recognized. The room recognized him before he reached the front. I could feel it, the particular shift in attention that happened when someone famous walked into a space that was not designed for fame. He acknowledged it the way he had been acknowledging it for 20 years, with a nod, practiced, genuine enough but practiced. He had 3 citations, 2 parking violations and 1 for an expired registration that had been expired for 7 months. I greeted him. He greeted me warmly. He said it was an honor. He said it with the ease of a person who had said things like that many times and had learned to mean them in a general way, even when the specific situation was inconvenient. I looked at the file. I took my time. I asked him about the first parking violation. He said he had been signing autographs outside a community event and lost track of the time. He said the kids had been waiting and he hadn't wanted to cut it short. I said that was admirable. I asked about the second violation. He said something similar. A school visit, kids again. He said he had a hard time saying no when kids were involved. I said I believed them. I said I could see from his foundation's work that he meant it. Then I asked about the registration. 7 months expired. He said he honestly hadn't noticed. He said he had people who handled a lot of his administrative things, and somehow this had fallen through. He said it was embarrassing. I said I appreciated the honesty. I asked him a question. I asked him whether any of the young athletes his foundation worked with had ever used the expired registration as an explanation for something they had not done. He looked at me. I said I was asking because he spent a significant amount of his time telling young people that accountability was a foundation, that you could not build anything real on excuses, that the discipline required to be exceptional at something physical was the same discipline required to be exceptional at being a person. I said I had read about his foundation. I said I meant that as a genuine compliment. He said yes. He said that was what he told them. I said, so you understand why I am asking about the registration? He said yes. He said he did. I said I wanted to talk about something else for a moment. I said I wanted to talk about what it meant to be known in a city. He listened. He had the quality of a person who knew how to listen. Athletes developed it or they did not, and the ones who developed it lasted longer than the ones who did not. I said this city had given him something. I said it had given him its attention and its affection for 6 years. It had put his name on jerseys and hung his number in conversations and carried his performances in its memory the way cities carried the things that had mattered to them. I said that was a gift. I said it was not a small one. I said very few people in the world received that kind of gift from that many people simultaneously. I asked him what he thought a city was owed in return for that gift. He thought about it. He said he tried to give back through the foundation. He said he tried to stay present in the community. He said he tried to be someone the kids could look up to. I said those were good answers. I said I meant that. I said, and what about the parking ordinances? He almost smiled. He said that was fair. I said it was not a trick question. I said I was asking because the ordinances were part of the city too, not the exciting part, not the part that ended up in highlight reels or or foundation press releases, but part of it nonetheless. The part that governed how everyone shared the same streets and the same spaces. The part that worked the same way for the person who had played 6 seasons for the home team and the person who had never been to a game. I said that when someone with his visibility treated those ordinances as optional, it sent a message, not a dramatic message, not an intentional one, but a message. A message to everyone who observed it about what the rules were really for and who they really applied to. I said young people were watching him now the same way they had watched him on the field. I said they were watching how he moved through the world when the cameras were not specifically on him, when there was no crowd and no commentator and no highlight reel. I said that version of him was the one that taught them the most. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said he had not thought about it that way. I said most people did not until someone pointed it out. I said that was not a criticism, it was just true. I said I knew who he was. I said I wanted to be clear about that. I said I knew what he had done for this city on the field, and I knew what he was trying to do for this city now through his work with young athletes. I said none of that was invisible to me. I said I saw it and I respected it. But I said that seeing it did not change what was in the file. I said the file was the file. I said the person who stood in this spot was accountable for what was in the file, regardless of what was outside it. I said that was not a failure of recognition. It was the whole point of this room. He nodded. It was the nod of a person who understood, not just the legal point, the larger point, the one about what it meant to be looked up to, the one about the difference between performing accountability for a crowd and practicing it when no one was watching. I find him on all 3 citations, full amounts. I was precise and fair, and I explained each one clearly, because he deserved the same clarity that everyone deserved. Before he stepped back, I told him one thing. I said that the most important play he had ever made was not on the field. I said it was the one he made every day in front of the young people who were watching him figure out who he was going to be now that the game was over. I said that play had no clock, no referee, no instant replay, just him and his choices and the people who were learning from them. I said I hoped he kept making good ones. He thanked me. He shook my hand before he stepped back. I let him because some moments called for it, and this was one of them. Not because of who he was, because of where he seemed to be arriving. He paid the fines. He walked back through the gallery. People watched him the way they always watched him, but he walked differently than he had walked in. Slightly less of that float. Slightly more of the ordinary friction of a person moving through a world that applied to him the same way it applied to everyone else. I moved to the next case, but I thought about what I had said about the play with no clock. I believed it. The game ends for everyone, eventually. The crowd goes home, the jersey gets retired. And what remains is just a person in the world making choices that either honor or diminish everything they once represented. He had a chance to honor it. I thought he would. Some people, when they finally encounter the room that does not float, discover that they were ready for solid ground all along. See you in the next one.